Hi everyone, welcome back. So I thought I'd go through all the books that I've read over summer because I haven't really spoke about them and they're just going to get lost in the void if I don't mention them. So there's not actually that many because I was in a little bit of a reading slump. Just going to be quick thoughts about everything I read over summer. Okay, so first of all, I read Bloom by Delilah S. Dawson, and this is kind of a sapphic horror kind of story. It follows our main character, who is Ro, I think her name is. We follow our main character, Ro, who goes to this like farmer's market, and she basically falls in love with this woman who sells all these like cupcakes and candles and all this kind of like homemade goods that actually sound really good. So she falls in love with her. Everything seems fine at first, and then we start getting these things that are like little hallmark signs of like a toxic relationship. And at first you kind of think it's just like, oh, this is just a toxic, like it's just toxicity in this relationship. But you know, as the story goes on, you start to see these more sinister things happening, and I really enjoyed how it kind of descended into this more sinister plot line. Some parts I think felt a little bit slow and dragged a little bit, like just where it is this very much long kind of like it's very much this long look at the relationship and these different parts of it and how the relationship develops, and then the more sinister things start happening towards the end. So I think some parts were a little bit slow, but other than that I really enjoyed this one. And I know that Delilah S. Dawson has another book coming out, Guillotine. I think it's just come out in September, so I'm excited to read that one as well. I think it's like been described as like Eat the Rich, so I'm there for that. And then next up I read A Magical Girl Retires. So this follows our main character, who is 29 years old and she's not having a good time in her life. She's got this crippling debt. She doesn't know how to get out of it. She's not got a job. She's lost it during COVID, I think. And she just doesn't know how to get out of this situation. So she doesn't really see a way out. So she's thinking about killing herself, and she gets stopped by this magical girl who says, actually, we think you might be a magical girl of time. So she kind of goes on this adventure and this journey with these magical girls and gets sucked into the world of magical girls. And magical girls are all kind of like this corporation, like everyone knows about them, and they belong to different corporations, and there's different kind of types, and they're not all on the same page about things. And I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed that kind of like magical girl element, and in this grown-up setting rather than just being like children. As it's quite short, it's very short. I think it's like a novella, I'd say. So it's not very long. And I guess there's only so much you can do in that amount of pages, and it was fun. But I really wanted there to be a bit more commentary on things, so it touches on things like climate change a lot, but I feel like there wasn't as much depth as I wanted there to be. But other than that, it was fun. It was a kind of like, you know, just fast-paced little story about her changing her life, and things don't go to plan, but it was fun. It was a good read. I just wish there was a little bit more depth to it. Then next up I read Funny Story by Emily Henry, and me and Emily Henry were on good terms again. I loved this. I gave it 4 stars. It is a romance following Daphne and Miles, and essentially their partners basically get together and then they are left rooming together because neither of them have nowhere to live. So they both are in this apartment, and it's kind of like a fake dating kind of story where they are trying to make their ex-partners jealous by pretending to be fake dating to go to their wedding. It sounds crazy, but somehow it actually works. And I really like how they don't just jump into this relationship. They do kind of like become friends first, and they kind of both recognize that they're not really in a place to be getting into a new relationship, so they kind of just become friends. And Miles is trying like to get Daphne to see herself and make her own memories instead of always having everything attached to her ex-partner. And I really like the kind of look at individualism in relationships as well, and how Daphne kind of has always been part of a we, and she's always going from different relationships, and she's never had time to be just by herself, which I really appreciated. There was one thing in this that just took me out of it. It was like she had no signal on her phone, and then the text message never came through, and then she just didn't get them at all. But when you have no signal, they just come through later. So I don't know how that happened, but it just seemed real unrealistic, and it seemed doesn't make sense. I don't know if it's different in different countries, but that I was like, doesn't make sense. But overall, I really enjoyed it. It was a really nice, fun read. I liked the friendships. I liked the little town, this like small town setting. And I loved that we see Miles and Daphne like discovering this little town for themselves instead of having all their memories attached to their partners, their ex-partners. And I can't wait to read more Emily Henry again. Okay, and then next up we have Interesting Facts About Space by Emily Austen, which essentially follows our main character Enid, and she is a bit of an odd character. She's neurodiverse, she's navigating these relationships with her stepsisters, navigating kind of her relationship with her father. Like, it's kind of this stream of consciousness. We get all these different things. She's got a fear of bald men. There's no plot. She's a serial dater. She's just going through her life. And we follow her as she's kind of like overcoming these different things and kind of processing them essentially, and coming to terms with all these different things in her life. I like the way that she navigated different like family relationships, and it's just really this character coming to terms with herself and the way she thinks and all of these different things. It's odd, it's classic Emily Austen. I never know how to really describe it other than it's an odd stream of consciousness, and it's just compelling to read. If you don't like plotless books, maybe this isn't for you, but if you like really character driven novels, this one's for you. And I feel like you do see lots of character development in Enid, and I really enjoyed it. And then next up I read Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. This was a book that I predicted I was going to get 5 stars, and I did, and I'm so happy I did. It essentially follows Emily Wilde, who's an academic studying fairies in this kind of like Nordic inspired country, and she meets her academic rival. It's not really her rival, it's like her co-worker who she doesn't really like. She's a bit like, she finds him a bit annoying, and he is a bit annoying, but in a good way. But it's kind of all written in her like novel, like her diary entries. So we get her perspective, and then Bamblebee also writes some bits in it, and it's just a wholesome little fantasy romance. Like, it's very low on the romance, I'd say, because we are getting it through her perspective, and she's a strange character, and she's a bit like grumpy sunshine, but she's the grumpy. She's a bit like withdrawn. I think she's in denial about the romance. That's what it is. So I think lots of people say this is a fantasy romance, but I feel like the romance is very low. It's very low key and subtle, and you kind of have to read between the lines for it, I'd say. But I really like it. I thought it was cute. I think their chemistry and like the way that they interact is just wholesome and cute. That's what it is. And obviously, while they're in this country studying the fairy, things obviously don't go to plan. They obviously get into some trouble. And I really like how we see them kind of like become part of this little community and befriend the townspeople. It's just a wholesome good time. And then next up, I read Carrie by Stephen King, which is actually my first Stephen King, I think. So we follow Carrie, a girl who's very shy, she's very withdrawn, and she suffers a lot of abuse at home, and she's bullied at school. She doesn't have a very nice life, and throughout the novel, she discovers she has telekinesis abilities, so she can move things with her mind. And we kind of follow these events leading up to prom night, where obviously something happens. And I really like how Stephen King kind of uses these like mixed media excerpts where he kind of puts in different like newspapers and books and different things speculating on the events leading up to this prom night. So if you're reading it for the first time and you don't know what happens at the end, you're kind of like, it does create this sense of suspense like in there about what's happening at the end. But I feel like where I knew what happened at the end, it kind of didn't have the same effect. So some parts I feel like did drag a little bit as well. Like the first half especially, it felt like there was too much explanation of things that I didn't really think mattered, or it just felt like it dragged a little bit, and some of the chapters did, especially the first half. But in the second half, I was like, could not put down. I was like, oh my god, what's going to happen? But anyway, I gave it 3 stars. I enjoyed it, and I can't wait to read more Stephen King. I think I've seen other people say similar things about Carrie, so I feel like there's more that I will enjoy. And then next up, I read Dark Matter by Blake Crouch, which is a kind of thriller. This is about a man, Jason, who is abducted from his home. No, he's not. Is married and has a child. And one day he's going about his life, goes to a bar, and on his way out he is abducted and taken to this random warehouse, and the abductor says to him, "Are you happy with your life?" And then from this moment he is taken somewhere completely different, and all these confusing things are happening. I don't even know how to describe it. Just so many things happen in this. It's confusing, it's like mind bending, some of the things that start going on in this book. It's very very unique and compelling, I'd say. Like, it was very much a page turner. I gave it 4 stars. It was enjoyable and it was really good. I think I gave it 4 stars for the kind of like unique concept of it, and like constantly trying to figure out what's going on and what's real and what's happening. But I found Jason a bit annoying. Like, I found him a little bit annoying. Like, his internal monologue was just a bit of an annoying man monologue. And the way he sometimes spoke about his wife and child, he spoke about them like they were things that belonged to him and they were like his possessions rather than people with their own lives and choices and stuff, which they're minor things, but those were the only things that really kind of got on my nerves with it. But other than that, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was unique and different and not like anything I've really read before. And then finally, I read What Feasts at Night by T. Kingfisher. This is like the sequel to What Moves the Dead, but we follow the main character, Alec, going to a different situation where they are also met again with another supernatural threat. I love T. Kingfisher's horror writing. I love the creepiness, I love the atmosphere, I love the way that she can just write this world and all of these creepy things into it with kind of like a sense of humour there. I think I enjoy T. Kingfisher's more modern horror, so set like in the modern world rather than this, which is set in like the 18 somethings. And I just felt like the supernatural kind of like things that happen in this, they weren't as scary or as creepy or as unique as they were in What Moves the Dead or any of her other horror books. I just think I expected a bit more from it and it wasn't as scary as I thought it was going to be. So I only gave this one 3 stars, but again, I love T. Kingfisher's horror writing, and I'll read anything that she puts out really, so I can't wait to read some more of her fantasy books as well. That's what I'm really excited for. And that is everything that I read over summer. Let me know if you've read any of these. What did you think? Are any of these on your TBR? Do you want to read any of these? Let me know. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, please remember to give it a like and consider subscribing. And I will see you in the next one. Bye!